Alrighty, without further ado, spawning in the bottom right in the blue. Give it up for the Zerg from KaiZ Gaming. It is Solar.
And spawning here at the top left, we have our red Protoss with a solid 3-2 win in the last series. Can he get another series win? From Alpha X, it is Classic.
Right. I feel like I haven't seen Classic's PVZ. Or at least I haven't seen it in a while. I know he has played some. It feels like recently it's been mainly Terrans and Protoss that he has played. I'm interested to see how he wants to play this out. I know right now a big meta is kind of going into that Stargate style, which really fits, if you think about it, Classic. Since he loves going into that more Stargate style, we've seen it in the previous series itself. So, be interesting to see. Looks like so far, though, in the head-to-head for both of these players, Solar has a pretty good lead. Last time they've played, it looks like Alpha Pro Series, Mini Showdown number 10. Solar takes it against Classic 3-0. Seen him in ITEX 3-1 against Classic. And Wardy TV Summer, looks like Classic was able to take it to a 3-2. So will we see another kind of close match? Or Solar, Solar kind of in that zone where sometimes he is just unstoppable. And then sometimes where it's just feels like he struggles. Will we see that unstoppable Solar tonight? Will we see him kind of struggle a little bit against Classic?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Solar sometimes do look like he's like almost like the best Zerg out there, and then sometimes, of course, he kind of looks kind of average. So Solar is kind of like a what do we have for today kind of deal.
Yeah, the flavor of the day kind of thing.
It's like, who will show up?
Yeah. Well, Solar, I gotta say, Solar is one of the best players I've seen playing against the Stargate meta. It feels like Solar has been able to do so many different style of builds to counter it. I've seen him do like swarm hosts to counter that style. I've seen him do, obviously the Roach Ravager style. It really feels like he has a grasp on the meta when it comes to that, but he does tend to struggle against those adept style plays. So I'm curious to see where Classic wants to take this. He obviously is going to be opening up Oracle first in this, but will he transition into that Void Ray style? And it looks like the answer is going to be yes, or at least for the moment.
Yeah, I feel like Solar is one of the Zerg players that's really great at executing the Queen Walk, and we have seen, of course, like a little bit of a meta into the PVZ matchup where a lot of Protoss goes for that, the heavy Stargate play, like maybe a double Stargate Void Ray play, and so I think because Solar is really great at executing that he has had and found some success against Protoss, whereas maybe other Zergs hasn't. And we'll see if it does come into play this time around. We don't see a second Stargate or anything, so it looks like Classic isn't quite going for that. And in fact, he is kind of... Oh, actually, as I say that, never mind. He is going for the +1 weapons air upgrade, which means that we might actually see some additional Stargates being thrown down.
Yeah, and as you say that, there is another one being thrown down. He does get that third base, which I think is going to be super crucial for Classic to be able to produce as many Void Rays that he wants to. And the fact right now is Classic is keeping Solar at a defensive position in a sense. He does see the Roach Warren, so he does know that is a possibility of like Roach Ravager and Seaslings, even in the Oracle, going to come in, try to get a couple of damage, couple of drone kills, but he has to be careful. That Oracle is very low. We do see the Void Rays being added on here. And it's one of those fine lines, we talked about it in the PvP series where when you go into the Stargate style, you don't have a lot of defense. A lot of times you kind of rely on shield batteries and cannons and stuff like that to get you by until you can get that massive critical amount. And it's so important in the PvZ style that if you do want to go into this mass void ray, your early game has to be on point and defend it. Keep your opponent on their toes until you can build up that critical mass.
I think Solar does have a little bit of an idea. Sorry, a little bit of an idea of what's coming, just because he did scout that there wasn't really much here on the ground for Classic, and I think he kind of may be suspecting that it might be a air kind of switch here. And it looks like he will throw down a Spire to help with that.
Yeah, well, he's getting Overlord speed, which is going to help him get inside and really confirm what am I dealing with here. Because we look at basically the vision here for Solar, he doesn't really have an idea what's going on. I mean, he sees the Void Rays now, so should have an idea what is to come. But until he can get a really solid confirmation, he might be a little hesitant to do any kind of serious attacks. But it does look like he is going to at least go into Spire and potentially just go into like a Muta style play here.
I hope that Solar doesn't, if he does go for Mulus, that he doesn't commit too much. I think he should commit just a handful in order to at least get the surprise on Classic and snipe out some probes. But because of the double Stargate, he does have access to the double Phoenix production as well as the Fleet Beacon to get that Phoenix upgrade if he desires to. But so I think Solar gotta be careful not to overmake the Mulus, but looks like he has elected to go for the Corruptors instead, and he is gonna try to amass enough Corruptors to overwhelm the Void Ray count, because of course we do know that Void Rays do counter Corruptors as they do extra damage to those armored units.
Yeah, we got the Templar Archives finishing up for Classic behind this. Solar now has a full view of what Classic is doing. Sees the three Stargates and just the massive amount of gateways coming through here. Definitely looks like Classic is ramping up for an attack. Sees the Void Rays, and we're going to start seeing some Archons and stuff getting added in here very, very quickly. Solar, though, has to play this in a sense patient. He just can't throw all of his units there and hope to win. He has to think about this strategically. And yeah, I mean, he's building in the links, he's getting Corruptors. Going up into Hive Tech, I don't know, does he end up going into maybe some kind of Lurker? I don't think that would be the call, but maybe if he can somehow surprise Classic and just start taking out some bases, because honestly, you look at the units and stuff here from Classic, he does not have any detection, so maybe that's the call for him.
Alright, looks like Classic wants to go ahead and put on some pressure here. And here we go. Oh, nice! Actually, he actually charged up half of his Void Rays and doesn't actually... Okay, now he charges up the other half. Here we go. I don't know if he has enough, though, especially on the ground. But if he can clear up the Void Rays, I think he should be able to hold.
Yeah, good corrosive biles going off onto the army of Classic, actually taking out a lot of forces. Gets the Oracle, gets most of the Void Rays, and now the small little force of Ling Roach Ravager is going to continue to put on the pressure. And now, what does Classic really have? He's going to warp in a couple of Zealots, and that's going to be about it. Overcharge is activated, but gets instantly taken out. There are a lot of Zealots here, so got to be careful, but I think Solar, yeah, he's just gonna have to hold back for the moment. He's getting more roaches. He's going into that greater Spire, and yeah, I mean, where do you go from here at Fort Classic?
Well, he probably can't go ahead and go to the air tech once again, because again he lost that air fight earlier on. Even though he does have 3 Stargates, but I think he is going to go ahead and try to transition into the ground and just kind of hope that Solar kind of overcommitted on the Corruptors, because you know in the later fights it doesn't really come into handy. The Corruptors really can't do too much in the big fight. All they can do is just vomit on buildings for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, he could go back into that air army, but it's so expensive. It takes so much time to rebuild it. Definitely see more of a ground force. Maybe pepper those in. Would you see the Archons getting morphed in? A lot of Zealots coming through here, but that's really all he's made is just Zealots, and these Banelings just going to push things back for the moment. But Classic slowly starting to try to push his way back into this. It's 5 bases against 4 and a big warp in here. I don't know. Is Classic overextending here?
He's I think this actually might be a good time because Solar is trying to warp in or morph in those Broodlords, which means that the army isn't quite ready yet to handle it, and I think Classic might have attacked in the great timing. However, the Broodlords finally morphs in, and I think he should be able to clean up the rest with these Broodlords. Maybe Classic should retreat for the time being, or at least get the hatchery right here before he kind of retreats back home.
Looks exactly like he's going to do. Classic going to actually attack the bottom base at the same time with some Zealots. Of course, we do have those drones getting pulled to try to deal with this. The Lings trying to pick off what little reinforcements that they can muster.
Oh my god.
And Classic just all over the place. Now, the big thing is this is those Broodlords are very slow and they take time to get across the map, so Classic able to kind of be in multiple spots and not have to worry about it too much. Do you have a fleet beacon on the way for Classic? But Solar now looking for his own counterattack. It's 163 to 111. Almost double the army supply here for Solar. But again, he's lost 2 bases. He's having to remake those. And he doesn't have an economy to just mass up at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like Classic's a little bit lucky because the Broodlords could have been attacking right now. Instead, it looks like Solar playing it a bit passively. We're going to retreat for his Broodlords for the time being. However, I feel like that might have not been the greatest call because he lost 2 of his hatcheries already. And he needed to do like some dent in the Classic's economy to help even it out. But now Classic does still have this forward Nexus going and running while he's doing all these counterattacks with the Warpism warping into the main base. I don't think it's going to get too much done, but it does distract Solar for the time being.
Yeah, he still has those Broodlords though out in the front, so unfortunately Classic not able to get the damage done on that 4th base like he was wanting to. We'll go ahead and retreat for the time being, but this does give him an opportunity to get into those Tempests and really start trying to produce a little bit more of that air. Does have some High Templar, probably going to make into Archons more than likely, but I don't know. With the Corruptors, with the Vipers, able to pull these Tempests very close. Is that the play here, though? He's going to look to engage into this army, getting on top of those Tempests. Corruptors pushing in one more time. Banelings do crash into those Archons. Crossabow's not really landing that much. But with the Broodlords coming in here, I just don't see how Classic can survive this. Even with the Immortals, there's just so much Zerg here. Should be seeing a GG here very soon.
Yeah, I mean, the supply is pulling away here for Solar, and I think the Broodlord switch has done it. I mean, when you're going against Broodlords, a Tempest alone just doesn't quite cut it because of the Corruptors. You really need some Void Rays added in there. And unfortunately, you know, he could either produce Tempest or Void Rays out of the Stargate at one time. And it looks like he wasn't able to amass enough air attack or air army to defend against the Corruptor Broodlord switch. And then now it looks like the Swarm is rolling in. And more blue dots streaming across the mini-map. And it looks like the Swarm will outswarm Classic this time around.
Yeah, I mean, we even have Swarm hosts coming into play now. So just adding more and more units into this altogether. And Classic 61 supply taps out. GG Solar.
All right, so I'm gonna pose a little bit of a question for you, since we're speaking of classic. Do you like your Lay's chips classic flavored, or maybe sour and cream, or maybe cheddar or barbecue? What would be your go-to chip flavor?
I'm a cheddar and sour cream man. I gotta have the ruffles with the ridges, and it's gotta. I love me a chip that's cheddar and sour cream. I don't know what it is, but that's so good. I like a little cheese,
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I also like my chips either sour cream or and onions or cheddar. And yeah, ruffles are really good.
Was that a hint of? Are you hoping he cheeses?
No, I wouldn't mind if classic did cheese. I mean, classic more of a standard player usually. I don't think he's like maybe a Parting or a Haas where they may go for cheese a bit more often, but I wouldn't mind if a classic gone for a little bit of cheese.
I think my biggest question is Classic gonna stay on this Stargate tech? Like, obviously, he's been going Stargate a lot, whether it's PvP, PvZ, but does he change it up and maybe go into a depth style play? I know that recently, like, the Glaive Adept build has been very popular, and it does tend to do some good damage, especially against a player like Solar, who tends to go for very Stargate-centric builds, if that makes sense. His builds are designed to work against the Stargate style, and we have seen that. If you can surprise Solar or just kind of give him a hint that, hey, I'm going into a heavy Stargate style, but then just go into a depths, it does tend to have some struggle there. So,
yeah, I think it might not be a bad idea to go for the go for maybe a Stargate with some oracles, and then to transition to Glaive Adepts, because this map, like, you see the bases are quite spread out, and with the bases that spread out, it really kind of gives some oomph to this Glaive Adept timing attack, because of course you got to chase it down, and of course there's a bit more distance for you to travel because the bases are so far away from each other. Although this is one of the maps where the natural is actually quite, wallable, so that if Solar does scout it, I think he can very well just like maybe throw down some evolution chambers and try to help wall that off to help against those Glaive Adepts from shading in. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and dive into this Oracle. Dives into the natural, but doesn't quite get anything damaged or any damage done, as there is a Spore as well as a Queen. So we'll have to retreat for the momentary time.
It's going to be Twilight and Forge coming out from Classic. He's taking third base once again, which is very good. I know sometimes Protosses like to kind of sit on that 2 base and just eventually get out macroed by their opponent, but Classic not afraid to kind of turn that up a little bit. So second, take a third, go ahead and kind of hold that out. Do you actually have the Adept shading in at the same time, looking to get some more damage? Of course, the drones are getting pulled, and only a handful of links here for Solar. A lot of lost mining time for Solar, and one Adept still remains. He ends up dying. Was that really worth it, though? Yeah. Don't mind that at all.
Yeah, I guess it's a pretty even or so trade there. Nothing too detrimental. I mean, there is, of course, the lost mining time, but, four drones going down isn't like the worst, so I don't mind it.
Yeah. We got Roach Warren on the way for Solar behind this. He does have that layer coming through as well, which will allow him to get roach speed if needed. And Classic just going to continue to pressure. Oh, gets a huge stasis ward, though. How many is that? 8? 9?
A
Drones
lot.
getting completely shut down, and more lost mining time, which really translates later on, just not being able to produce more roaches, not being able to produce more lings or drones. It really does have that effect. We have zealots coming out for Classic. He's only going into that single Void Ray. Does have charge and +1, so it looks like he is gearing up for an attack here. And yeah.
Alright, once again going for that stasis ward, but this time around doesn't quite get it.
Oh, the War Prism does end up going. He's going to go into Archons, into the main base. Zealot's going to do a run by into the natural. There are roaches, though. And Classic doing a little bit of cheeky. We said, you know, is he going to do something besides just the Stargate? And it looks like he has answered our questions here.
The problem for this is that Classic didn't make enough gateways for him to actually go for a committed attack. And so while this attack does come in at the before the 7-minute mark, it doesn't look quite as large, it seems.
We do have a Nidus Worm on the way. So if Solar can hold this off, he can actually just go across the map. Ends up taking out one of the Archons. And eventually gets cleaned up. Solar looking pretty strong. He does have the Overseer going into position. Storm is on the way. High Templar being built, as well as some shield batteries, as Classic is expecting an attack on the forefront. But lo and behold, it's going to be an attack in his own base.
Oh, unfortunately, this Immortal gets caught off here as he was not expecting a Roach counterattack. At the same time, there is a Nidus Worm going into the main base. However, I think Classic just used the Warp in here into the main base of Solar, so he doesn't really have a Warp in here at the main base. I'm not even sure if he noticed it yet, but now he will. Gonna go ahead and finally warp in some charge lot, and the Queens are gonna go ahead and start spraying those creep tumor, I would assume. Might not be a bad idea to just plot down the creep. There we go.
And yeah, now just going to start taking on to the production of Classic, the Queens and Roaches. It's going to continue to hammer in on this main base. More Roaches, more Ravagers getting morphed in. And yeah, I mean, Classic in some trouble here. 173 supply to 110. Gateway's not going to be able to really finish up or do anything. There is an Immortal and some Stalkers, but this is just a lot of Zerg. I don't know if he's going to have enough here.
Oh, nice Warfield though. Does leave some of the Roaches inactive, but looks like the Corrosive Bile will break that. And here we go. Gonna fight alongside the Shield Battery, which will help out. And I'm not sure. This is quite a close fight, but I think at the very least, Solar will be able to take down that Nexus. There we go. The main base Nexus does go down. However, can he clear up all these tech buildings? If it does, then Classic is not going to be able to produce any more units, and he will have to tap out.
He's below 100 supply. Fortunately, he just cannot keep everything alive. Gets hit by so many Corrosive Biles. His units are very badly bruised, very badly beaten. And even the Void Ray helping out, trying to keep in line of the, the shield batteries. Yeah, getting all of the tech, getting all of the production, just making it harder and harder for Classic to actually warp in to defend against us. A second Nidus Worm does come in to help out with this, and GG's.
Solar looks like one of the guys that could be ready to get into the brawl. Like, he will take his glasses off, start throwing beer bottles, and start throwing tables as well, throwing punches. And looks like we'll see if a Classic can kind of punch back. But anyhow, spawning at the bottom right, we got our blue Zerg player who is on match point, looking to close out the series with a clean sweep. It is Solar.
Spawning in the bottom left, the Protoss from Alpha X. Needs your support to stay in this series. It is Classic. Right. Well, it's very interesting. So Classic has just come back, and this new, I want to call it era of Protoss meta. that we've kind of talked about. You know, obviously the Stargate's been a big style. Even the Depths have been very popular. I like that he is trying a different approach, but unfortunately against a player like Solar, when you go into these kind of one-off builds, Solar is just able to mass up so much. And he was gearing up for an attack anyways with the Nidus play that, you know, just ended up not working good for Classic. So, very interesting. Gonna go into double pylon here.
A little bit of mind games here as... Oh wait, actually, never mind, not mind games. I completely missed the forge there. No, doesn't quite get the wall off, which is gonna make it much difficult for him to get this cannon rush off. And oh, not looking like a great start. Those drones immediately getting on top of the cannon.
Yeah, unfortunate there. I mean, he does still have the pylons that he can eventually throw down a couple of cannons, but he's got to be careful. He's waiting for the Zealot to come across. No, he's just going to tap out. He's like, you know what? GG's.